Well, hello everyone, and thank you very much for having us to speak with you today. My name is Jennifer Curry, and I am the Director of Development at Dancers Career Development. Dancers Career Development is a registered charity, and our mission is to empower and enable all professional dancers in the UK to have a positive transition into a post-performance career. And I'm delighted to have with me today Barnaby Ingram, who is a former professional dancer and DCD beneficiary, and Isabel Mortimer, who is a former professional dancer, CLAW fellow, DCD beneficiary, and certified life coach. So we're going to hand over first of all to Barnaby.
Thank you very much. Firstly, what an amazing platform. I want to say what an amazing platform this is, and to have all these issues addressed, and to know that this research is being done, reflecting back on my career as a dancer, to all of a sudden put those pieces together in my head. I think it's amazing what you guys are doing, so thank you very much. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my career as a dancer, my life as a dancer, if you like, the issues that I was facing at the time, the highs and the lows, and the important issues that I was facing when I was making that transition in my career away from dance, and the help and support that the Dancers Career Development gave me, not just in retraining grants, but the psychological help as well. And I'm going to tell you now that my transition was not an easy one, and I found it very, very difficult. So I'm going to start from the beginning. So as a 3-year-old with obviously very low self-esteem and begging my mum to let me take her to ballet. No, that's a lie. I'm the youngest of 5 children, and at 3 years old I did start dancing, and my siblings all went through the dance training. My brother went to the Royal Ballet, White Lodge Royal Ballet School, and to Elmhurst and to Rambert, and then he gave up just before he went to be a professional. My sister went to the Royal Academy of Dance, and she had a back injury, and she stopped dancing as well. And I danced from when I was 3, and completely unrelated, at 12 years old I had a jet ski accident and managed to smash my patella and put two screws in my kneecap, and was told by the professionals that I wouldn't be able to dance or walk unaided again. So at the same time, while my leg was in plaster, my mum took me to see Cats in the West End, and it was the first show that I'd ever seen. We had a very strategic aisle seat with my leg propped up, and I was massively inspired, and my leg came out of plaster, and I picked myself up and pushed forward, and I proved the professionals wrong. But I do remember as a teenager really struggling with leading a double life. So I was at school at the time and studying for my GCSEs, and all of my hours outside of school I was dancing. So I was going to ballet, not tap, I was rubbish at tap, jazz, rehearsing for festivals, etc., etc. And I never told any of my friends at school what I was doing, because I was fear of being picked on. So I was leading this double life, and I was, at that point, probably about between 14 and 16, I really thought about giving up, and I wanted to stop. And I'm glad I didn't, and at the age of 16 I went to Dorian Bird College of Performing Arts, and suddenly I felt like I fitted in, and I had an amazing 3 years of my life. And in that first year I remember seeing Chicago, and it came out in 1997 in the West End. It was a revival, and I remember going to see the original cast and being so obsessed with Bob Fosse that I ended up writing a dissertation about him in my 3rd year. And then I left, graduated from Dorian Bird, confident that I really wanted a career and a life in dance. And I very, very soon got my first job, which was in Germany. It was a German musical. I remember being at the airport, nervous as hell about what was coming ahead, but was so excited to finally be able to do what I really, really love and earn a living from it. And then that moment, 10 months later, when I tore my meniscus and had to cut the contract short, to picking myself up again and bouncing back, and then getting offered Cats in Stuttgart, and I couldn't believe my luck. And then 3 weeks into the rehearsal process, tearing my meniscus again and having to pull out of the contract and being completely devastated. And I met a girl, and I went to Australia, and we kicked around in Sydney for a while, and then I was very lucky, by a twist of fate, to have the opportunity to audition for Cats again. And I did, and I was successful. and did an international tour for 2.5 years, and can honestly say that I built up some of the fondest memories of my life. And then from there, my career went from strength to strength, and I was lucky enough to perform with Adam Cooper in Japan and Sadler's Wells. And then I got my first West End job with Phantom of the Opera, and I did that for 6 months. And then I got Chicago, and that was 2006. And I did a year contract. And I came out of Chicago in September 2007, and I reflected back at the last year and what was probably one of the most negative years of my life, both professionally and personally. And having realised this lifelong, well, certainly since I was at college, ambition, I didn't know what to do. I really didn't know what to do. But I wasn't willing to give up. I just didn't know what to do. So I started working as a bartender, just as a jobbing dancer, performer. And I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed the physicality of it. I enjoyed the performance aspect of customer service. And I know, can you believe it? So I've lost my train of thought there. And so I was enjoying being a bartender. But I didn't want to give up, so I was continuing auditioning, or not auditioning. I was turning down auditions for about a year and a half, 2 years. My agent calling me, "I've got an audition for you." "No, don't want to do it." "Got an audition for you?" "No, don't want to do it." And I think by the end of it, he was as frustrated with me as I was with myself, and realised that actually I don't know what I want to do. So I was desperate at this stage that I must find a natural career progression that's in the dance sector. What do I do? I knew from a very young age that I was never going to be a teacher or a choreographer. It's 2 left feet as far as I was concerned with that one. So what do? Okay, I know what I do. I'm going to be an agent. So I went to be an agent for sort of part-time. I was an assistant. Very good agent, he was too. And I kind of realised fairly quickly that I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy being sat at a desk. And the nature of the business it wasn't for me. It wasn't for my personality. So then I came out of that. 12 months later, I resigned, and I returned working full-time with Corny and Barrow. Sorry, that's a wine bar. I don't know if I mentioned that, the wine bar where I was bartending. And at this point, I started to feel really scared because I really didn't know what to do. And I felt like a failure. And I felt like I was failing myself. I felt like I was failing my parents. I felt like I was failing my parents who had given me all that love and money and support for all my training and career. And all of a sudden, I was thinking about doing something different. But I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't really know what to do. So that's when I turned to the DCD, the Dancers Career Development. And I remember looking at their website and seeing that they not only offered retraining grants, which is great if you know what you want to train in, but they also gave counselling and one-to-ones and psychometric testing. I didn't know what psychometric testing was. I'd chuck it in there at the time. I had no idea. But I went there, and I remember picking up the phone and being really, really nervous because for the first time I was admitting to myself that I was really struggling with this transition. And they invited me in for a one-to-one, and I sat down with the lady who used to work there called Jessica Carter for an hour. And I remember after that hour, all of a sudden, everything kind of went into perspective, and I realised it wasn't just me that was finding it hard going through this transitional period, that there are actually thousands of people and dancers out there at any time making a transition away from dance and struggling with it. And she said something that stuck in my mind, and she said one of the reasons why dancers find it so difficult to make that transition is the level of job satisfaction is so high. I loved dancing. It was so high that you try and find another job, it's never really gonna match up to it. And then after that, they sent me to a chap named Andy Evans, who was a performance psychologist. This was all paid for, by the way, I want to make that very clear, who performed psychometric testing with me. And as it aspired, a career in hospitality kind of suited me. So, well, it was either that or being a policeman or a fireman, but my girlfriend at the time really didn't want me to do that, so I kind of cracked on with it. So I went back to Corny and Barrow wine bars, and by this point I was developing a passion for wine anyway, and I think because of my sort of Yeah, I know. Again, can you believe it? I think again with my performance experience, I naturally fell into training, being quite a good trainer, and was promoted to a beverage training role with the company, and they paid for me the work. At this point, paid for me to do my WSET, which is a Wine and Spirit Education Trust Intermediate Certificate. Fantastic. I got really passionate about wine now. But I wanted to grow. I wanted to expand my knowledge. I didn't have the money to do it. So I picked up the phone, spoke to DCD, and they told me to apply for funding. I did, and they very kindly and generously paid for me to do my advanced certificate. With my training experience and now my advanced certificate on hand, I was able to get my current job as bar manager at the Gun Docklands, which is a gastropub in London, which has just been voted in the top 10 gastropubs by the Times. Just thought I'd put it in there. And I love my job. And I'm still very, very passionate about what I do, so much so that they're continuing to fund me. And in January, I'm going to start my WSET Level 4 diploma, which is the major stepping stone to become a Master of Wine. Do I miss dance? Yeah, sometimes terribly, and I think that I always will. I think even if I'm lucky enough or unlucky enough to be old and grey and unable to move, I'm going to miss dancing. I think it's in our nature, it's in my blood. But I don't regret changing careers, and I'm very, very grateful for the Dancers Career Development for all the support that they've given me and all the support that they give other dancers out there. And I think it's so important for people to know that these guys exist, because it's really can be a very trying period in dancers' lives. I'm going to hand you over to Isabel Mortimer now.
Thank you for that, Barnaby. Hopefully I'm going to follow on very well from what Barnaby said, who's given us a real life experience of what it's like for a dancer to make a transition. So I'm a beneficiary from the Dancers Career Development, and I feel very fortunate to have made a very positive transition from being a professional dancer to a professional coach. And I feel equally fortunate that I found two vocations. One was dancing, and I believe my second vocation is coaching. And I'm thrilled to be working with the Dancers Career Development, because I'm passionate about dancers in transition, so I'm thrilled to be supporting dancers in that way. The Dancers Career Development also supported my fellowship to be a CLAW Fellow, so I'm continually grateful for their support. And as I echo Barnaby's words, it's not just financial, it's also the psychological support to know that they're there. So today I'm going to talk to you about two things, which is identity, which we've heard a bit about, and I'm going to talk about transition. And the nature of transition challenges a dancer's identity. And I believe it's one of these reasons. It's typically a dancer goes from a very, very early age. And as Peter said, it's a form of expression. So they've grown up with it through primary school, through secondary school, and by the time they come to a transition, it's actually all they've known throughout their life. And that big part of the pie is dance. You dance and you live, sleep and breathe dance. It's not something you do, it's something you are. You are a dancer. And I've got news for you, Peter, you'll always be a dancer. Someone said that to me the other day and I was incredibly relieved. I thought, that's lovely. I can let go of trying not to be a dancer anymore. I'll always be a dancer, but I'm just doing different things. So there you go. And I think I was with the London Contemporary Dance Theatre, which was one of the original contributors to the Dancers Career Resettlement Fund. And language is very important. It's been noticed earlier. It's now called the Dancers Career Development. And that word development is very, very important, because that's exactly what it is. It's a development of who you are and what you are in the world. But dancers often come to a transition perhaps from injury, perhaps from getting too old. So they're often in quite a dark place, and perhaps in a place of grieving. And even I didn't come from those places, but it was still a grieving process for me of actually leaving behind a life I knew. So I knew who I was in a studio. I knew what it was like to be sweaty with bodies, dancing all around, and I knew what putting a show on and the rhythm of a show. Stepping outside of that arena, who was I outside of that arena? What did I have to offer the world? Who could I even speak to? What were my skills? that was incredibly daunting, and it was very isolating, and there was a real feeling of being not really understanding what I had to offer. And I remember going as a coach, going to work in the corporate world, and being amazed that they had all these hobbies. Like one of them was learning to be a pilot, one of them was cycling every weekend, and I thought, God, I'm really boring. I don't have any hobbies. And of course, I looked back on my career and I went, I did my hobby. That's what I was doing. I was doing what I loved every day. So I never went to work. I went and played in a studio with lots of other fabulous people. And so when it came to making that transition, I did feel like I had been gagged for a long while when I stopped performing. So I liken having a dancer career to being like a violinist or a musician that trains for many, many, many years to be, the solo violinist in an orchestra, and they know how they want to play that music. They know how they want to interpret. They understand the way it's going to sing and the way their violin is going to be played. And you ask them to put down the bow, and they're never going to play that violin again. That's what it's like. Except, how do you put yourself down? You can't put yourself down. So I get emotional now, but there you go. You just have to go with it. So you can't put yourself down, but what dancers do have, and this is what I want you to take away. What do I want you to take away from today? 3 things. One is that identity and dancers' transition is complex. For the reasons I've said, it's who you are. It challenges your identity. And therefore, you have to understand who you are in a new environment, in a new terrain. But the good thing is that dancers have transferable qualities and skills that will stand them in good stead. And to name but 3, one is resilience. Professional dancers have to have huge resilience. They can't go through the knockbacks, the injuries, not being chosen for a piece if they don't have that resilience. They have adaptability in abundance, resourcefulness. They have to be adaptable. On stage when someone gets injured and they have to go on and learn a part, they have to be very quick and adaptable. And adaptability is a key survival skill. They have tenacity and persistence. They will stick at something. These things are invaluable when you're walking into the unknown, when you're walking into territory that you don't know. These things will stand you in really good stead. And I could go on for ages about what other qualities dancers have. The last thing I want you to take away is it takes time to make a transition. Dancers panic. They get to that point and they go, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, and they might grab onto the first thing they know. That's why I believe that coaching can be a real valuable part of unravelling the spaghetti that's in your brain and finding out what interests you, what excites you now, not then, but now, and really taking that time to understand what it is that you're going to invest your precious time and energy in for the next 30 or 40 years. And it's exciting. Making a transition is exciting, and understanding who you are is often, I only really appreciated what dancing was when I really left it. And I didn't really understand that a big part of my dancing career was about self-expression. I only understood that when I left. And so what I want you to take away is that it's respecting the grieving process that dancers will go through, understanding their skills, and taking the time to really understand what it is that's important to you now and what you want to spend the rest of your 30 or 40 years doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isabel and Barnaby, for sharing your perceptions. And so I'm going to talk to you for the final few minutes of our presentation about 3 things. Firstly, why dancers' career development do what we do, so the challenges and the opportunities. Secondly, how we do what we do, so the services that we provide. And thirdly, what can we do? So I'm going to give you some practical hints and tips, both for professional dancers and dance students, and also for those within the wider sector. So first of all, why do we do what we do? Well, according to the dance mapping document published by the Arts Council England in 2009, there are thousands of dancers employed in the UK. These are dancers who are employed by the ballet companies, by small to medium-sized dance companies, and also those dancers who are employed by the musical theatre and commercial sector. Each one of those dancers will at some point have to transition into a post-performance career. And as Isabel and Barnaby have pointed out, at a critical life juncture where most adults are hitting their professional stride, dancers have to embark on a second career. And of course this is going to be challenging, but at DCD we see these challenges as opportunities. And actually there's opportunities for three groups of people. There's opportunities for the individual dancer, there's opportunities for the dance sector as a whole, and there's opportunities for the wider community. So we believe that for the individual dancer, as long as they're given the right tools, encouragement and support, they can navigate a positive transition. For the dance sector themselves, actually it's about retention of a really valuable workforce and recycling that creative capital back into the sector. In 2011, DCD did a survey of our former beneficiaries, and 47% of those described their post-performance career as in dance or dance-related. So dance teachers, dance leaders, or those dancers that go on to shape the wider dance sector. So thirdly, what about the community as a whole? Well, actually, by investing in career transition for dancers, we are enabling the workforce to benefit from a highly skilled group of individuals who actually, given the encouragement and given retraining, they can make a significant contribution to the wider economy. So now I'm going to very quickly run through some of the services that DCD provides, how we do it. So DCD is celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. We were founded in 1973, and in those 40 years, we've supported over 1,800 professional dancers to transition into a successful post-performance career. DCD empower and enable these dancers to navigate the transition successfully, and we are uniquely positioned to do this. It's really interesting. There's a very interesting statistic about being prepared for a transition and the job satisfaction in your post-performance career. So 81% of those dancers who stated that they were fully prepared for transition stated high levels of job satisfaction in their second careers. Whereas out of the pool of dancers who didn't feel they were very prepared for transition, only 51% cited job satisfaction in their post-performance careers. So what does this tell us? It tells us that being prepared and knowing what the challenges are that you might face is really vital. And DCD does this by our program of support services that we offer. So firstly, we offer one-to-one consultations, which is a unique space for dancers to come and talk about their anxieties in a friendly, non-judgmental and confidential manner. We work with highly skilled professionals such as Isabel Mortimer for our coaching program and Andrew Evans. Partnerships are really valuable to us, so we partner with Dance UK on the Dancers and Dance Teachers mentoring program. We also work very closely with the CLAW Leadership program. Advocacy and awareness are very important, so we work with dance companies and dance schools across the UK, presenting information sessions to both dancers and dance students. And this advocacy arm of our work stretches out internationally. As the first organisation of our kind in the world, and the only organisation of our kind in the UK, DCD really reflects the mobile diversity of the dance force in terms of spreading that network of transition centres around Europe and around the world. We're also very interested in being at the cutting edge of research in dancer transition. And it's very interesting that a lot of our beneficiaries are now going on to undertake this research. And I know that some of you are here with us today. And we also, of course, offer financial retraining grants. And these grants really enable dancers to undertake the accredited qualifications that are so often needed and required when pursuing a post-performance career. So that's a very whistle-stop tour of our services. I'm now going to leave you with some practical hints and tips. So firstly, for those within the sector, what can we do? Well, recognising career transition and the psychological impact of this on dancers is vital. Transition is an inevitable and intrinsic part of every dancer's career. Companies and schools have a role to play with this in this as well. They have the capability and the capacity to be really facilitating and championing awareness about career transition. For schools, it's really important for dance students to be aware of the array of skills that they're picking up through their training process, also by having dancer transition in the curriculum of final year dance students. Companies should be working towards facilitating and fostering an open environment of trust so that dancers feel comfortable talking about career transition. And perhaps companies can offer professional development opportunities within the company for dancers. DCD works very closely with our 9 affiliated dance companies, ensuring that those dancers are supported through their transition. So finally, 3 top tips for professional dancers and dance students. So first of all, keeping a track of all of the transferable skills that you hold whilst you're in your performance career, thinking of it as sort of a non-dance CV, whether it's leadership skills built through being an equity representative or other knowledge and experience that you've built up. Keeping a track of this, obviously along with keeping hold of all of your contracts, is very, very important and will be important when it comes to transition. Secondly is reaching out and utilising the support services that are there for you. To contact DCD, you don't have to know what you want to do in your second career, and you certainly don't need to have finished performing. We advocate for dancers to think about transition as early on as possible in the process. So my third and final tip is to be inspired and to stay informed. Have a look on our website and read the case studies from our dancers who successfully transitioned, either into dance-related careers, such as dance teaching, choreography, into leadership positions, or into multiple other careers. We've transitioned florists, accountants. Dancers are very dedicated and inspirational people, so go online and be inspired. And secondly, stay informed. So sign up for our free e-newsletter, find us on Twitter and Facebook, and really just keep the dialogue open between yourself and DCD. So we've talked to you about the opportunities and the challenges with career transition. We've talked about how DCD are providing valuable solutions to these challenges. And thirdly, we've talked about some hints and tips to take away from you today. So on behalf of myself, Isabel and Barnaby, thank you so much for listening, and please do ask any questions that you have. Thank you.